Hello. I think we're live, dude.
Live.
Live from the Cleveland, Miami connection, dude.
Let's I'm Mark and this is Alberto and we got somebody on the line here.
I'm Steve Wieclaw, formerly from Cleveland, but I've been down here in Miami for going on 6 years now.
Very
Love
cool.
the weather.
Tell us about yourself.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a jack of all trades, or Steve of all trades, I guess, so I've had a long career as a business analyst for a certain insurance company that's big up in the Cleveland area. I'm not going to name names. But I was also a professional musician at some point. And the funny part is I used to do stand-up comedy with Mark way
Yeah,
back.
and improv too.
Yeah. I was good friends with his brother, who I worked with, and he said, "Hey, I know you've done stand-up. Why don't you come out and see my bro?" And
Yeah, we go back how many years? A couple decades maybe? Or a little
yeah,
less than that? Yeah, probably a couple decades.
something like that. But now I am a filmmaker, a writer, director. I also work at a film school, so I teach and all that. I came down here to get my master's degree in filmmaking. So loving life. I'm poor again, but I'm happy. I had a really good career, in the corporate world, and it just wasn't doing it for me. And that's something that I wanted to talk about in this podcast was, I've suffered most of my life from depression. And, comedy at first, was part of the treatment because we need to laugh, be able to laugh at ourselves. And people can't do that anymore, so comedy was kind of therapy for me. But then, with my job and everything else, I had a great job. I had a really nice car, uh, uh, really nice condo downtown Cleveland and everything else. But, it wasn't doing it for me. And I think it's because I always itched, to be creative. So that's why I was a musician. I did art in the past, the comedy, did a little bit of acting. And then all of a sudden, there was a contest to make a video to be in a commercial with Flo from Progressive. And of all people, Mark has a little camcorder. I didn't even own a camcorder at the time. So he recorded this commercial for me, and I won. And went out
Nice.
to Los Angeles. They flew me out there to be in the commercial. So I was just a fuzzy, blurred out character in the background. But just seeing, 200 people on set all working together like army ants, and just seeing that, I was like, this is what I want to do. The acting thing was one thing, but I was just like, no, I need to be on the other side of the camera. And so for me, being where I am right now, I blame Mark and his little camcorder. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. I still have that camcorder, by the way.
Oh, nice.
I think it's amazing when you said this is what I want to do, how your eyes just lit up super bright. It was
Yeah.
amazing to see.
Well, and I mentioned a moment ago that like I said, I'm struggling right now because this is a very, very tough industry. It doesn't matter how hard you work or if you're the most creative and have the best ideas. There's just a lot of luck that has to go into it too. But it's all about making connections and everything else, which is why I originally was going to, after school, go out to LA. But I love South Florida so much that I'm just kind of hanging tight here. So even though, I've got a long way to go at my age, I'm happier than ever, just doing this. So making films. So right now I'm fundraising, for a short film that I want to shoot soon.
Yeah.
And if
Tell us
it,
about the plot of that future film that you want to make.
yeah, basically, a boy who recently lost his father, um, comes across a homeless guy in a park, and they instantly become friends, despite the man being a veteran that has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that quickly, puts a burden on the relationship because, the negative stereotypes and stigmas placed on homelessness, his mom is telling him stay away from this guy, his friend, is taunting him, and basically everyone just stay away from this guy. But they form a bond because the man's a former teacher and specializing in ancient Greek philosophy. And the boy's last name happens to be Plato. So that's kind of what they talk about and gets the interest.
Nice.
Because his last name is Plato, his dad, the boy's dad, used to teach him a little bit and do that. So, the what makes this film different is, we have a homeless character, despite his, mental illness, becomes a father figure to this boy. And, I really feel strongly, about that because I majored in sociology, with my undergraduate degree. So, not necessarily, the psychological part about it, but just, again, the stigmas, placed on certain segments of society. So I feel, this is my chance to maybe give back because I've always felt hypocritical. I'm like everybody else. The main street, where the school that I teach and work at is on Lincoln Road in Miami Beach. And, there's lots of people begging for money, obviously. And, I always found myself walking all the way around because, not that I didn't want to be bothered by them, but, sometimes, the homeless are frightening. And, it's because of their mental challenges, and all that. So, I worked at a soup kitchen a couple of times and I just didn't feel like I was doing anything because, giving some money, or anything else isn't fixing the real issue, for those that do, have mental, illness or trauma. So this film, I think, I want to help, raise awareness, to the bigger issue there, of, yeah, you can give money, but that's not really solving the problem.
There's a famous expression that I'm sure you're familiar with. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Mhm.
It's one of those situations where a pen, or rather the story you're crafting and you're portraying it through film, will influence the mindsets of countless people that will be change for the better. I think it's a really cool example of that phrase in action. I think that's very commendable.
Thank you.
So actually one of my questions regarding the short that you had, which if it's okay with you, I'll look in the description as well. So Mark has shared a Facebook short of you. We were talking about the film. I wanted to ask you about the Greek mythology part. Is there anything else you can divulge about that? About what exactly is it more about, like the Greek gods and goddesses, or is it more about the history?
No, it's more about philosophy. So yeah, I mean that's why, the boy, his name is Eric, and the homeless man is named Max. So Eric, befriends him because Max, gives him good advice, through some of the philosopher's words. So for example, for a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. So that's huge because the boy, having recently lost his father, he's trying to find himself, and again, his friend is an asshole, and his mom is just so snobby. She's trying to keep him away, from this homeless man and everything else. And, the man tells him, you've got to fight your own inner demons, forget about what everybody else thinks about you. That's more important for you to accept yourself and be happy.
That phrase you just said reminds me of a Stoic, kind of like a Marcus Aurelius Epictetus kind of phrase. I've never heard that phrase before, but it sounds like a Stoic, like one of the Stoics wrote something like that. Does that sound close?
Yeah, yeah, basically. So, I think it brings in a more interesting conversation, between the two. Obviously, it's not just, the homeless man, being nice and friendly to him, whatever, but he's teaching him. And, for Max, he's homeless. He's given up on life because of, what happened to him. He got fired as a teacher because of his PTSD and all that. And, this not only does Max inspire Eric, but Eric inspires Max because he loves teaching, or he used to. And now he gets to do that again. So the inspiration goes both ways. And I thought that, having him be a former teacher, it really makes it more interesting, but also heartfelt.
People say that when you're writing something that you're passionate about, like it pretty much writes itself. Did you find that that was what happened to you when you were writing the script for this short? You know what I mean? Like it came divinely inspired to you?
Yeah, well, for me and most writers, well, that's something that we're taught in film school is, you don't make up characters. It's always somebody that or, somebody that you've witnessed, in a restaurant or, riding on the bus. There's always interesting characters there, and, I'm just constantly studying people. I used to go to the mall just to people watch, and that's one of my burdens is I always try to find a backstory with anybody, perfect strangers too. And so I found myself doing that when I said I feel hypocritical, of trying to avoid the homeless outside of work. I still would have to just wonder, what happened? What happened? Why are they in this situation? And it, again, that's kind of why I love writing is, it brings out my own characteristics, but also, allows me to tell the story of others, from their perspective. And, especially with the homeless, we're seeing Max's perspective, not just how people look at him.
I don't know if I ever told you this, Steve, but in the first 3 months of 2020, right before COVID like hit, I was at the men's shelter downtown volunteering. I think it was like 4 hours in the morning on a Monday or whatever, doing Reiki on the homeless population that was in there. And they had them divided up into a mental health area, a veterans area, an addiction area, and then a back to work kind of area. And all those folks kind of stayed in those areas. And I worked all of those areas with the Reiki. And there was one guy in the mental health pod that was real nice to me at first, and we kind of hit it off. And I would look forward to seeing him and talking to him. And then all of a sudden, one day he was like cold to me, and I, it was just the most bizarre kind of feeling because you're like, I had a rapport with him, and then all of a sudden I had no rapport with him, and I didn't know what happened, or it was just very bizarre. But I just wanted to share that with you, that like if you know that
Yeah,
that I have a little bit of background with that population, and that it can be um, kind of topsy turvy at times.
yeah, that's why, I promised that I'll send you the script, but that is part of the storyline there is, all of a sudden it seems like, okay, they're friends now, but the PTSD, starts happening um, with Max, and Eric, he basically tells Eric to get the hell away from him, go away, and all that. But he comes back because he's curious. it's that curiosity. And that comes, from my own being. When I said I always look for the backstory in people and everything else, but that's something that, you know, I want to know more what happened and why all of a sudden this person changed.
Yeah. I would definitely like to know why the guy that I was having a good rapport with like just turned on me kind of, but it's probably something I'll never know, but it's just interesting to see that firsthand kind of envelop in front of your eyes and just like trying to compute it, and trying to figure it out. And there's like no figuring it out. It
Yeah.
just is what it is.
Well, and I guess, the good thing is it bothered you.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it really upset you. And that means, you're a good, kind-hearted person,
Yeah,
where
thanks. I was
yeah,
vested
most
in,
people
yeah.
nowadays, they're just like, ah, screw you, and they just go off on their own.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for me and it was an interesting place to be. So yeah, I hope I can get back in there someday. They kicked out all the volunteers during COVID and then I tried to do distance Reiki with them and they said that was kind of too out there. I don't know if do you know what distance Reiki is?
No.
It's when you send the energy through the ether of the world and that person gets the energy no matter where they are in the world, as long as you have that connection. So it's kind of hard to get your head around how it works, but it does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In literature, there seems to be this archetype of um, kind of wisdom behind or excuse me, wisdom behind eccentric behavior, or like what people see as like madness is a certain type of transcendent wisdom. And you see it in something like if you see the movie The Lion King or the Rafiki guy that kind of like the what kind of talks sense into the Simba, like no, you gotta go back and be the but he was portrayed as like this man that was just like very eccentric. And I think like stories like yours, where you see a man that's definitely, I mean, he's looked down upon for no good reason, but he's looked down upon and carries such wisdom. And those kind of archetypes, I think, are really very deeply rooted in our psychology. And I think it really adds a lot to the story. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I wish I knew more of the psychology of it, but it's just it's tough because again it I think people just decide right away when they hear somebody talk too, anyone with mental illness, that okay, this person is you know beyond fixing,
Right.
which is a horrible way to say that, but um, there's oftentimes, I know I just prefer not to talk to people just because I think that they're judgmental. But on the flip side, I'm being judgmental about them.
Yeah.
So that's my own, psychosis right there. But it's just, something I think about a lot, as I'm studying people, always, looking for backstories. I just wonder if they, what does their family, think of them, or how do they deal with them? You always hear a lot of jokes, and you'll see that in comedy movies, about the crazy uncle, right? Well, that's just one of the stereotypes that is easy to laugh about. But if you look deep into it, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, me and Alberto did peer support back in the day, and we used to call it meeting the person where they're at when you would engage somebody who was at whatever level they're at, and then you have to kind of try to mentor them along and help the process along, try to, but that was a commonality. It was then you find the commonality actually when you're working with a person like that. You have to find things of similar interests, and that also helps establish rapport with the individual. And then, you try to take them to another level.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys for inviting me on to this podcast, because this, in essence, is, some therapy for me too, because I've said some stuff now that, I don't normally talk about, especially if I'm going to talk about depression and all that. Why? Because it's still shameful, to bring that up in front of people. It's just like, oh, well, look at you, you're not truly depressed. You don't have any reason to be depressed, or, oh, you just need to be more positive about things and all that. But for me, I went to a therapist, several times, and I thought I knew more than them. So I really just, never got anywhere with that. And, it's just something that I tried to hide from friends and family, the fact that I was suffering inside, and, I still am to this point. But, like I said, um, I was obviously the oldest student, to go back to school and everything, but it was just, I gave up everything, sold everything I had to do this, and I am finding a little bit of happiness.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's good
That's
to hear.
wonderful.
Yeah. Your
It's
journey is,
slow going. Yeah.
yeah, you had quite a journey since going from corporate to what you're doing today. So I imagine the depression was a lot worse during the corporate years
Yeah.
for you.
Yep,
And I,
definitely.
I really identify with your drive for creativity. One of my big goals in life, and something I'm actively working on, is so I'm also a musician, but I aim my music to be on a healing perspective. And I've thought about going into sound healing, but I'm not really trying to get away from being too social, because working in peer support really burnt me out from dealing with large amount of people. But just being able to play music and then resonate with people and have them find some sort of glimmer of happiness or rest. I think maybe in some ways parallels to what you're doing is trying to find common ground with others that help them not only in their own lives, but maybe think about people in their lives that they did not consider that needed support or needed some sort of care from them, and makes them see them in a different light. Like, hey, this person isn't like a person they're not being stigmatized, or they're a human being that are suffering, and we see help them in any way or show them compassion in any way. And I find that a lot of meaning that the arts seem to be really leaning people in that direction.
Yeah. So, I'm more of a manic depressive, obviously. So, doing music and, stand up and all of that, allowed me to really escape reality. And, I had so many coworkers that would come out to see me perform, and they were like, "Oh my God, Steve, where did this come from?" Because at work, I was Mr. Serious. Okay, we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm drinking coffee all day. I'm grumpy. I'm grouchy and all that, whatever. And then they see me, dancing around stage and singing and doing all this. And, that was my escape from reality. The only problem with being a writer now, the screenwriter, is I spend a lot of time by myself, obviously, which I enjoy. I'm what do you got? Introspective, or what's the word?
Introverted.
Introvert. Yeah, introvert. So, like I said, I really love what I do now, but I'm not getting that group therapy that I need, of being around others and just relaxing and saying, you know what, this film can wait a little bit. But right now, I'm so focused on fundraising for this film, and it's not going as well as I need. So, anyone that watches this, if you could please donate to that will help ease my mind a little bit too, so I can smile a little bit more. But again, I love what I do now, and I really think that and you hear that a lot, and from filmmakers and everything. Oh, they're trying to send a message, or they're they're writing about, something important, and it's important. It's really good, for people to see themselves or see others in the characters in a film, but it's a fine line, walking where, you're just trying to, I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, I'm just, writing this story because, it'll gain more interest from, people that have bigger issues, than I do and everything else, but it's not really about that. This is, some of what the characters do and say are, how I really feel. But I do, really feel strongly that, this film hopefully can make a difference, that, people will enjoy watching it, but also, see these issues in a different light.
All right. What do you think, man?
I think this is great. I really want to thank you for your time. And just as this quick side note, I'll make sure to add the link to your fundraiser on the description of the YouTube video. But I just want to thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom and your insights and your story. And I really appreciate you coming on board and on our podcast. Thanks so much, man.
Great. Yeah, you guys are doing a great thing here. Keep it up and invite me back sometime. Maybe after I get the Oscar.
Yeah, when you get the Oscar for Best Short. When will that be? Next year? Or when do you have to submit that by?
Well, I mean, it's basically I'm going to do, the festival run, and that was part of the reason that, the fundraising like this, it takes a lot of time. I mean, it's a full-time job, just getting the word out, reaching out on social media, all my friends and family contacts and all that, and, I'm finding out the hard way that, it takes months to prepare to do this. And I just jumped into it because a lot of film festivals happen in November. And I was thinking, okay, I could shoot this, edit it, get it out there, for November festivals. But, it's going to take some time, and, I'll get there and, do the festival circuit, hopefully next year, with this. And if anyone from Cleveland International Film Festival, is watching this, look for my submission. The film is called Found.
All right. Yeah, good luck to you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Take care.
Right. Take care.
Yeah.